Hello, welcome to Todd Miller TV. I want to talk about this Assembly Bill 284. There's just a lot of misinformation going on about what it means and what the consequences are and what the future is going to be. I'm just hearing and seeing all these reports that are they're just not right. So I'm going to go through what this is and what it isn't and try to set the record straight. Okay, so Assembly Bill 284 is this new thing the legislature passed over the summer. And what it does is it puts some more restrictions on what a bank has to go through before they foreclose on a property. Now, when I say some more restrictions, there's actually really nothing in here they don't already have to do. They're trying to raise the bar a little bit. So I'm going to go through those, and then I'm going to go to what the outlook for this really is. So one of the things that they said was, well, if the bank, say Wells Fargo, forecloses on a house, and in the meantime they had sold the note, that has to be recorded. That's an assignment. They have to record that assignment. So that's all that's saying is, you have to record that assignment. So that's a new thing. That's a different thing, and that's before you can file the notice of default. You just have to make sure you've recorded that. So they could still file a notice of default tomorrow. They just have to, before they file that, say, oh, by the way, we assigned to this, and then this person assigned it to this, and then you notarize that, and then they can file the notice of default. So that's a little bit of a change. There's a lot of talk about this $1,000 if they don't, if they foreclose and they don't remove the deed of trust against the person. There's a 21-day window. There always was a fine. It was $500 before. It's just now $1,000. It's just more revenue to the state. I don't know if it's ever been enforced, but that's a total non-issue. That's not going to stop anybody. They now have to provide this affidavit and statement saying they do have the ability to foreclose. A lot's been written and said about this and how this is going to stop them, and they're not going to want to do it. But the truth is they're going to do it. Either the trustee's going to do it, or the bank's going to do it, or somebody's going to provide a statement saying they have the legal authority to do it. It's not going to stop somebody who's going to do an illegal foreclosure, but the truth is that the banks, this is a business for them, that they have to turn these properties back into cash so they can recoup the money and reloan the money. They're not going to let people stay in the house for free. They're going to figure it out. So this new statement thing isn't a big deal. They've raised the penalty on mortgage fraud to $5,000 to a max of $5,000 if you commit mortgage fraud. That's very vague, specifically saying what that is. But the bottom line is it's not mortgage fraud to foreclose on a house, just because the paperwork wasn't exactly right. There's a difference between fraud and making an error in a paperwork. There's a big difference there between fraud and a paperwork error. That's not going to stop the banks. They're not going to be scared to death. Another thing is that they said it's now a felony if they false representation concerning title. So there's always been a law in the books. It was a gross misdemeanor before. It's now a Class C felony, and it's not any major new thing that's going to stop. It's not like they're going to go get the president of Bank of America because when they filed the notice of default, some of the paperwork was wrong, and they're going to go get him and throw him in prison. The truth is that none of this is really new or a big deal. So the thing you've probably heard that's got people scared to death is, oh my gosh, in the last month there's only been 40 or 50 or 90 or whatever notices of default filed. Well, there's a reason for this. The banks are having to adjust to this new policy. They're having to figure out, how do we make sure we've done everything right before we do this? It's not going to stop them. There's going to be an adjustment period, just like with the SRPD. The banks all filled them out now. They've got a process in place. It took like a whole week for them to figure this out because, it started in October and on October 1st, and it took about a week to figure it out. This is something that's going to be figured out. It may take a few weeks or a couple months, but we've got the time. This is why we've got the time. So you've probably heard a number being thrown around about how many current notice of defaults have been filed. And the current number ranges from 15,000 to 25,000. That's how many are sort of out there that haven't been foreclosed. So we're going to go with the smallest number. We're just going to go worst case scenario, 15,000. So 15,000 properties are out there that can still come into our inventory, that the banks can still file the notice of trustee sale. Okay, So what is the absorption rate? How long is it going to take? Well, despite what you may think, we only have 3,500 total sales a month. And according to the September trustee sale report, the total number of sales at the trustee sale that either went back to the bank or a third party, meaning a completed trustee sale, was 1,872. 1,872 is not a big number considering there are 15,000 properties out there. That's about an 8-month supply of houses. Okay, of those 1,872, roughly it was 1,300 went back to the bank, 560 or so were bought by a third party at the trustee sale. So we've got this 8-month inventory, and normally it takes 3 or 4 months from 4 months basically for the notice of default to the to when it's sold at the trustee sale. So we've really got a 4-month period for the banks to figure this out, and when they do, they can go start doing their recordings properly so that they comply with the law. The banks aren't going to wait that long. I honestly don't think we're going to see a substantial change in inventory. This is very short term. It's going to take the banks about a month probably to figure this out, and then we're going to get back probably by December, January to the normal number. It's going to take, like we've already seen, it's going to take at least 8 months just to get through everything we have, and not counting the current inventory that's out there. The worst thing we're going to see is maybe a lower level of REO properties coming out in the late spring or early summer, maybe. We may not see anything. If the banks figure this out pretty quick, which you know they're going to do, because I've just shown you these are not major changes. These are a lot of minor things. There's some procedural things for the banks that they're going to have to do the paperwork different or figure out. And then they're going to turn the fire hose back on. And all those notice defaults that would have been filed, you know, this month are all going to get filed maybe next month or in December. And what we're going to see is we're going to see the lull happen just with the notice of defaults. Very few filed now. Then we're going to have a big month where they're filing everything because they wanted to file it. They had to wait till December, and then we're going to see that November, December, January. I'm going to tell you right now, I told you so. This is not going to be a big deal, and we'll track the notice of default numbers, and in November, December, we'll see what they are, and we'll see if they really pick up. And so the bottom line is, I think this is much ado about nothing. I don't think this is a big deal. There's a lot of fear and a lot of scarcity out there with what this means. It's not that big of a deal, So anyway, I just wanted to share that. I'm kind of passionate about this because I just sometimes think people overreact to what they hear, what they think, without really looking at the actual ramifications of this. So anyway, that was my update for today, and I hope to see you on another video. Thanks a lot.